Barnet still 0-0 against Hereford. The Bees unbeaten at home this season, 5 wins and 2 draws from 7 at Underhill so far. It is half-time there, as it is at the Crown Ground. Accrington Stanley 0, Dagenham and Redbridge 1 at half-time. As I say, we'll go through all the half-times for you very shortly, but we're talking Premier League. What, if anything, would you do to change it? We've had an email on that subject from Pete saying, hi Phil, you're missing the point. The issue is not between the revenue between top and bottom of the current Premiership, which we highlighted, Manchester United earning about 20 million more than West Brom last season, but the gulf between the Prem and the Championship. Just look at the value of the Wembley Championship playoff final, some 60 million quid. It is, isn't it, recognised as probably the richest game in world football for a one-off match. It's very hard to budget for the two different scenarios, says Pete on the email. However, I do not like Garside's closed shop idea of no relegation from the proposed Prem 2. Up the blades from Pete, a Sheffield United fan listening to us today. Well, on that last point, I certainly agree with that. You cannot have no relegation from the Premier League. You cannot have a closed shop. I know they do it in Rugby League, don't they, in the Super League, but they also have this playoff system where you can win the league and not win the league, if you know what I mean. So shouldn't really be borrowing ideas from Rugby League, I don't think. But no relegation would just not work. It would remove that whole competitive element, and it simply is not possible. I mean, what would then be the ambition or the target for the clubs trying to get into this two-tier Premier League? It just couldn't happen, and that surely can never be allowed in the English game. Phil Kitramilidis is with me in the studio this afternoon. I mean, if that is part of the plan for this two-tier Premier League, and it has been mentioned, it simply wouldn't work, surely.
Well, it wouldn't, and it would, like we said, highlight the absolute. It would be the end of the other League 1 and 2 sides. You know, where would Leyton Orient and Brentford and Mill? What would they be trying to do
exactly
if they can't get into this closed shop top 2 division?
And how do you choose who's in it? Just because you got the most money in the first place?
No. It's deeply flawed, in my opinion. We should not be taking any examples from Rugby League and Rugby Union, because that's just rubbish.
No, we won't get started on this whole playoff system. No. We're also talking about diving and I guess the wider issue of this respect campaign for the referees, which came in the start of last season. I mean, referees are not helped by players cheating them. The likes of David Ngo diving. The referees have a very difficult job, and we've mentioned how on certain angles you could have given a penalty for Liverpool against Birmingham. Only after seeing it afterwards would you realise that it wasn't. And then you get the likes of Sir Alex Ferguson criticising the referees, saying they're playing against the referees. You know, they're having to beat the officials as well as the opposing team. It doesn't help anybody, and it completely flies against this whole respect campaign, which seems to have been forgotten about.
Yeah, I think it's actually got worse. I think it's actually gotten worse. The referees are taking now more stick, more flack than ever, despite the respect campaign, which has just completely fallen by the wayside. We've had Sir Alex Ferguson this week given his 2-match ban, customary 2-match touchline ban. I think it's the 3rd year in a row now he's got it. And
yet there's still another 2 suspended, but they never seem to be enforced, do they?
No, they don't. What's happened to them? And do you think he's going to learn his lesson? He's been warned about his future conduct.
I think if he was ever going to learn his lesson, he would have done by now. I can't see him changing at this point in his career. Let me know what you think about this. I mean, referees, they do get a raw deal, don't they? But the players diving, something has to be done about it. The referees, they're not necessarily going to spot it at the time, but why not have retrospective diving action? Phil thinks it doesn't work and it's not going to stamp it out. I think, given time, if players see colleagues, opponents serving 6-match suspensions for diving, they're going to think twice about it.
6-match suspension for diving? I think it's a bit draconian.
It's the only way to get this message across. It might seem that way, but if it works, I think it's necessary. And as long as it's made clear to everybody, they know what the rules are, they would then have to start abiding by them. We'll just take a quick break from this to go to Twickenham. Russell Hargreaves watching England against Argentina. Wasn't a particularly inspiring first half by all accounts. Russ, has it got any better for England in the second period?
Definitely seemed better, I've got to say, Phil. The score's still the same as when we were last with you. It is still England 9, Argentina 9, with 17 minutes left on the clock. I have to say, England have played a little bit better in the second half. They've forced the initiative and looked a little bit happier and more conducive with ball in hand, but they've missed 2 penalty chances to take the lead again, both missed by Jonny Wilkinson, who was perfect with the boot in the first half, but has missed both his chances in the second. The first early in the second period, his own clever chip forcing the Pumas offside, but Wilkinson missing a relatively straightforward penalty chance. And then moments ago, a far more difficult opportunity on the halfway line, on the far touchline as well. He struck it okay, but it fell just short and just wide of the post. As for the Pumas, one penalty chance of their own missed by Martin Rodriguez. He's missed 4 out of 7 kicks so far, otherwise the Argentinians could easily be ahead. But one credit to England, you've got to say, they've come closest to a try in the second half. A great run from the Sale winger Mark Cueto, turned defence into attack. It won a line out on the Argentinian line, but again a laboured build-up frustratingly saw England lose possession, and the Argentinians got the ball to safety. So 16 minutes to go. The crowd have tried one half-hearted Swing Low Sweet Chariot, but the atmosphere is still pretty insipid, I've got to say, here at Rugby HQ. This Investec Challenge Series match is still level. England 9, Argentina 9.
Just very briefly, I remember speaking to you at a similar point of the game last week against Australia when it was equally tight. You predicted England were going to hang on. They slumped to a disappointing defeat. So what do you reckon come full-time today?
Are you implying I don't know what I'm talking about?
Well, I'll let anyone draw their own conclusions.
It's a tricky one. I mean, England have had the better of the second half, but the indiscipline is still there, and you've got to fear all it would need is one silly error, particularly up front where the Argentinians are still just about on top, and it could change the course of the game. I would hope, given their second half possession and territory, that England have done enough to maybe pinch it with a late penalty or a late drop goal. I'm going to go same as last week. I'm going to say England just about eke an unconvincing victory, but I've got to say I'm not exactly sure.
OK, well, we shall see. We'll find out and be back with you for the full-time details at Twickenham. Russell Hargreaves watching England against Argentina. Right, half-time in the football then. Let me update you. In League One, it is Brentford 2, Millwall 1 at the break. Those 2 goals from Johnny Bostock sandwiched by a strike for Paul Robinson, the Millwall captain. Bristol Rovers 1, Carlisle 1 at half-time. Charlton leading the MK Dons by 2-1. David Mooney and Nicky Bailey, after Aaron Wilbraham had put the Dons in front early on at a very blustery Valley. Colchester 1, Exeter City 2 at half-time. Gillingham goalless against Oldham. It's Hartlepool 0, Leyton Orient 0. Not too much to report for the O's as yet. Norwich 0, Tranmere Rovers 0 at half-time. Walsall leading Stockport by 1-0, and it's goalless Yeovil against Southend. In League 2, Accrington Stanley 0, Dagenham and Redbridge 1. Mark Arbour for John Still's Daggers. Aldershot goalless against Macclesfield. At Barnet 0, Hereford 0 at half-time at Underhill. Bradford City 1, Bournemouth the leaders 1. Bury 2, Notts County 2. Notts back on terms just before half-time. Crewe Alexandra 0, Morecambe 2. Darlington are leading Burton by 1-0. It's Lincoln City 0, Cheltenham 1. Northampton 0, Grimsby Town 0. Port Vale 1, Rotherham 1. Rochdale 0, Chesterfield 2. And Shrewsbury goalless against Torquay. So Rochdale losing at half-time could be good news for Dagenham and Redbridge. In the internationals, remember, it's Scotland 3-0 down at Wales at half-time in Cardiff. Just to update you on some international news, Nigeria, the latest team to qualify for the World Cup. They defeated Kenya in Nairobi 3-2. The former Newcastle striker, Obafemi Martins, scoring twice. Yakubu of Everton getting the other. So the Super Eagles will be going to the World Cup. New Zealand earlier on today as well, qualifying, beating Bahrain in their playoff. England against Brazil later on in Doha, a friendly between two teams who will be expected to be challenging for the World Cup come next. And we're going to talk England and the World Cup much more a little bit later on in the programme. Let's talk racing for the next minute or so and go to Cheltenham. It's been their first big meeting of the jump season, of course. Let's get you up to date with exactly how things have panned out. LBC's Rupert Bell is there.
Yes, and done and dusted here. It's been a wet and windy day, ground very testing, but a terrific winner of the feature, the £150,000 Paddy Power Gold Cup, as Tranquil Sea justified favourites tag of 11-2. First Irish winner in this first major race of the jump season for 29 years. Never in doubt, really, once they headed into the straight, despite Poquelin under Ruby Walsh running on into second, trained by Paul Nicholls, with Holden back in third. Elsewhere, some terrific performances supporting this race, with Gallen Nui winning the long-distance handicap chase at 1:55. And this meeting is stacked full of pointers for the Cheltenham Festival, inevitably in March. And we've seen a very useful juvenile novice hurdler in action in the opener, Pistolet Noir, who's earned a 20-1 quote with today's sponsors for the Triumph Hurdle next March.
Rupert, thanks very much, Rupert Bell at Cheltenham for us this afternoon. As I say, we're going to be talking England much more in the next hour of the programme. It is a 5 o'clock start for them against Brazil in Doha and assessing their prospects. I want to hear your thoughts for who should be in Fabio Capello's squad as well. But let's just wrap up this debate we've been having about the David Ngo dive and what, if anything, punishment he should face. I'm saying a 6-match ban. Phil Kittredge-Milidis thinks it wouldn't work. If it wouldn't work, what